This is the first in a series of videos that will provide you with an overview and an introduction to the new Wales safeguarding procedures in relation to adults at risk specifically. This video is one of a series of videos which will take you through the different sections of the procedures, highlighting the key elements of those sections and the requirements they place in relation to the practice of safeguarding adults at risk. At certain points in the video, we will come to suggested exercises. It is advised at this point that you may wish to pause the video in order to reflect on the questions that are posed, or alternatively, you may wish to come back to these at the end of the video. The exercises may also be helpful to use in supervision, team meetings, or any learning and development activities that you may put in place. With this video, there will also be a demonstration of the app, and with that, there will be opportunities to see how the app looks on a mobile phone or tablet in particular, and some suggestions as to how to navigate your way through the app. The aim and purpose of this resource, the resource being the suite of videos, is to provide an overview of the structure and the content of the new procedures as they relate to adults at risk. It is also the aim of this resource to raise awareness of how the procedures relate to safeguarding roles at a multi-agency level. And, as already alluded to, there will be some guidance on how to access and use the procedures via the app or the website. Throughout the videos, there will be references to the shift in culture and practice that is brought about by these new procedures. Not only do these procedures introduce new processes that need to be followed, but they also bring about a shift in the way in which we interpret, define safeguarding, the way in which we approach our relationships with adults who may be at risk, and the way in which we go about safeguarding and protecting those individuals. Some of the key shifts in culture and practice that will be referred to include the need to be person-centred. By this we mean we make sure the adult at risk is at the centre of our focus, that we are including that individual throughout the application of these procedures. By doing this, we make sure that the adult at risk is central to all decision making in relation to them as an individual. There is a presumption of capacity of an individual that is implicit throughout these procedures. By that we mean we start from the position that the individual has capacity to take part in the safeguarding processes, to make informed decisions and to participate, unless it is proven otherwise. There is a duty placed on all individuals and organisations that support adults who may be at risk. There is a duty to report this particular individual if we suspect that they may be at risk of neglect or abuse. You will see throughout the procedures the emphasis on the new, more focused multi-agency approach to identifying and supporting adults. There is also a need for us to consider our approaches to safeguarding these adults at risk and ensuring that we are proportionate in the responses that we provide. The procedures are no longer published in a paper format. They are accessible electronically. They are accessible in the form of an app, which can be accessed through an app store on an Android phone. You would enter Wales Safeguarding Procedures and look for this icon. The procedures can also be accessed online following the link above. So the context of these new procedures. On the 6th of April 2016, the Social Services and Wellbeing Act was implemented in practice. Part 7 of this piece of legislation covers our duties and responsibilities in relation to safeguarding adults and children. Accompanying the publication of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act and its associated regulations and codes of practice was this document here, titled Working Together to Safeguard People. Volume 6, Handling Individual Cases to Protect Adults at Risk, set out the process, the responsibilities that needed to be followed in order to protect adults at risk. This document now has been further developed into the new procedures, and the focus of these videos will be in relation to adults at risk. The procedures for safeguarding in Wales are national procedures. They detail the essential roles and responsibilities for practitioners to ensure that they safeguard children and adults who are at risk of abuse and neglect. The procedures help practitioners apply the legislation and statutory duties that are placed on us under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. Throughout the procedures, you will find what are referred to as pointers for practice. Whilst the procedures in their own right tell us what to do and the process to be followed, the pointers for practice provide information on how to complete the task. Almost like a toolkit, a practice manual. These pointers for practice draw on the latest research and practice developments and are a helpful resource when applying the procedures and working with individuals and stakeholders. It is also important that our safeguarding practice starts from the premise that we all sing from the same hymn sheet, we are all using the same terminology within the same context. Quite often the terms that are used throughout these procedures will be interpreted slightly different according to different organisational policies and procedures and interpretations. The glossary provides the one set of terms that all individuals using these procedures should refer to, should use in their practice, irrespective of their discipline or organisation. These procedures are designed to standardise practice across the whole of Wales and also standardise the practice between agencies. The procedures replace the Wales Interim Policy and Procedures for the Protection of Vulnerable Adults from Abuse, which in practice was often referred to as the POVA procedures. We now operate to the Wales Safeguarding Procedures. The procedures come in a number of sections, as is demonstrated on your screen at the moment, and the videos in this series will follow each of those sections. It is helpful to think of each of these sections as being the key stages in the safeguarding process when protecting adults at risk. So section 1. This section covers the principles and the features of effective practice that we should put in place when safeguarding adults at risk of abuse and/or neglect. As already illustrated, these procedures are implemented under the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. In particular, they are implemented under Part 7 of the Act. However, it is important to note that the Social Services and Wellbeing Act introduces a new approach to how we support individuals more generally, but also in the safeguarding context. Whether we are supporting individuals in the community, whether we are supporting individuals through the provision of information, advice and assistance, whether we are supporting individuals through an assessment of their care and support needs and the meeting of these, or whether we are safeguarding and protecting those adults who may be at risk of abuse and neglect, we should be operating from these common set of principles in which we provide the individual voice, choice and control, in which we are focused on preventing the escalation of that individual's need, or in the case of safeguarding, escalating the risks that may be posed to them. That in our approach to supporting that individual, we are actively promoting their individual well-being. That we work co-productively with the individual, which means the relationship that we have with the individual is one of balance. There is no power dynamic in the relationship. By this, we are recognising that both the individual and the practitioner both have valuable contributions to make in how we support the individual adult at risk. And finally, it is essential that we work in a multi-agency way. We work in partnership with our key stakeholders in order to protect adults at risk. So the key principles and duties that are set out in the Social Services and Wellbeing Act must feature in our practice when implementing the safeguarding procedures. These duties include the need to have regard to the views, wishes and feelings of the individual, that we respect their dignity, we enable, facilitate, support their full participation in the process, and that we actively have regard to their characteristics, culture and beliefs. This first set of duties applies to all individuals, whether they are adults, children or carers. In respect of adults, we are also required to have regard to the adult being best placed to judge their own well-being, and that we are actively promoting their independence wherever possible and appropriate. The box at the bottom then refers to specific duties in relation to children and young people. In addition, we have duties in relation to the need to make an active offer to individuals in respect of their language of choice, and in particular that we make an active offer to that individual to identify their wishes and preferences of receiving a service, support, information, conducting a conversation through the Welsh language, if that is their preference. Throughout our relationship with these individuals and the support we provide, we must be actively promoting their human rights as per the relevant legislation. And finally, we must be ensuring that the individual is provided the most appropriate advocacy support if that is required. The purpose of advocacy being that that individual is able to express their views, wishes and feelings, that they are able to actively participate in the discussions and the decisions that are made in respect of their life. When we talk about taking a person-centred approach, there are two key values that we must be mindful of. The first is that safeguarding is everyone's responsibility. This is not a new concept. This has been implicit in safeguarding activity and processes for a number of years prior to these procedures. For safeguarding arrangements to be effective, it is essential that each professional and organisation works together to identify when an adult or a family member may be at risk, to build a better understanding of the adult at risk circumstances and potential need for care and support, and to prevent their needs from escalating. We might hear a person-centred approach described in alternative ways, such as the examples provided in this box here. What is important, though, is that we all adopt an approach that focuses on the needs of the person rather than the needs of the service. So how is this approach different to the way in which we've operated previously? This slide summarises the shift from the classic approach that we have seen in practice when supporting individual adults at risk to the new approach that is advised and suggested in the safeguarding procedures, but also in the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. A person-centred approach puts the needs of the person at the centre of decision making. It ensures that the decisions we are making about those individuals are based on a clear understanding of the personal outcomes that the adult wishes to achieve in day-to-day life and what matters to that individual. You will see as we work our way through each of these videos the requirement to engage with the adult at risk throughout the whole process. And in doing that, we are enabling that individual to determine how they may manage those risks. You will see here on the screen reference to a pointer for practice. You will find that pointer for practice in the safeguarding procedures. So, time to reflect. Take time to consider the following questions. Take time to reflect on what you have heard so far. How do we find the balance between protection and promoting what matters to people? And in doing that, what are the challenges and the opportunities that this approach might pose? When we think about a person-centered approach to risk, it's important that we make effective decisions using a calculated and reasoned assessment and analysis of the risk that's taken into account reliable evidence, that is based on a two-way conversation with the individual adult at risk and the practitioner, so that we're reaching that shared understanding of any concerns there may be, and that we are actively and regularly reviewing the adult's situation and any risk assessments that may be in place. And again, you will see within the procedures, there is a pointer for practice that will provide some guidance on risk assessment and a person-centered approach. As well as the duties placed on us by the Social Services and Wellbeing Act, there are also a number of safeguarding principles that should underpin our safeguarding systems. The principles underpinning effective safeguarding systems are set out on the screen in front of you now. What is important to note are the numerous references to the individual's personal outcomes. It is important, as was already referred to in a previous slide, that we are focused on what matters to this individual within their circumstances. It's getting the balance of what matters to that individual with our duties to protect and promote the well-being of the individuals we're supporting. Within the procedures, there are key definitions relevant to safeguarding adults at risk. It's quite easy to skim over definitions. We've seen them, we've heard them, we've read them in previous activity. However, these are now different definitions to what we have used in practice using the POVA procedures. It is these definitions that will inform our duty to report an adult at risk, that will inform the responses that are taken in order to identify any potential risk to this individual, and the process that is then followed to protect them. This is not a new definition of an adult at risk that has come with these new procedures. This definition of adult at risk is set out in Part 7 of the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. The definition of an adult at risk, therefore, is a person who is aged 18 or over. The at-risk element meaning that even if abuse, neglect, or other kinds of harm have not actually occurred, they are likely to occur without support from services. So when we bring these two elements together, an adult at risk is anyone over 18 years of age who is experiencing or is at risk of experiencing abuse or neglect. And they have needs for care and support. And as a result of the needs they have, they are unable to protect themselves against abuse or neglect or the risk of it. All three conditions, as set out on the previous slide, are necessary for an individual to be defined as an adult at risk. It is important to reiterate that the abuse or neglect does not need to have occurred before we intervene or report that we suspect an adult may be at risk. It is important that we are all considering, where appropriate, any opportunities to support that individual at an early point in order to safeguard them and prevent actual abuse and neglect occurring. The risk of abuse or neglect may come from one concern, or it may come from many different factors. The term safeguarding does not solely relate to the process that we follow in order to protect that individual. The focus on prevention and early intervention is a key aspect of our safeguarding activity. Educating the individual and those around them to recognise the signs and dangers of risk that they may come into contact with is a safeguarding activity. Abuse, neglect and/or exploitation, which we will explore shortly, may be linked to one specific incident, or it could be an ongoing incident or repeated incidents of abuse and neglect. It may result from one issue or many different factors. And it is important to note that it can take place in a range of settings, such as a private dwelling, residential or daycare. Within the procedures, there is a pointer for practice that details the signs and indicators of possible abuse and neglect in an adult at risk. It is important that you take the time to look at the pointer for practice. There are changes to definitions that we have previously used. There is the introduction of new signs and indicators that we have not previously considered when determining if an adult is at risk. Neglect, therefore, is a failure to meet a person's basic physical, emotional, social or psychological needs, which is likely to have a negative effect on their well-being. This slide summarises some of the elements of neglect that we may notice when working with an individual. However, as noted on the previous slide, it's important that we take the time to read the full definition of neglect as set out in the procedures. When we talk about abuse, it can take many forms, such as physical abuse, sexual abuse, psychological, emotional or financial abuse. And as previously noted, it can take place in any setting. It's important to note here the introduction of domestic abuse and violence. This is a new addition to the definition of an adult at risk. So once again, it is important that we familiarise ourselves with the definition, the signs and indicators of domestic abuse as set out in the procedures. Exploitation now features within these procedures and can take many forms. This slide highlights some of the forms of exploitation that we may come into contact when supporting individuals. So at this point, it may be timely to take some time to have a look at the different categories of abuse, neglect, or exploitation, using the app or the website to enable you to do so. So to summarise section 1 of the procedures, a reminder that these procedures do bring about a significant shift in culture and practice. And the important points to note from this section are that we are moving from a set of procedures that have been interim and in written form to procedures that will now be a live document available electronically that will be continually updated as required. What's also important to note is that these national procedures will also run alongside any procedures that have been agreed by regional safeguarding boards. Therefore, it's important that when reading the national safeguarding procedures, that you also have consideration to any procedures agreed at a regional level. We're moving from procedures that have been underpinned by a focus on paperwork and a strong compliance with policies and procedures to procedures that are now underpinned by the person-centred and preventative principles and the duties set out in the Social Services and Wellbeing Act. And we see a move from reference to a vulnerable adult and the definitions that went with that to a new definition of an adult at risk. But with this comes broader categories of abuse and neglect.